Vamos a ir primero con The Day Before, que es la movida de juego que hemos hablado aquí alguna vez, que en teoría iba a ser un MMORPG survival en un mundo apocalíptico de zombies, en el que las escenas de vídeo claramente estaban basadas en otros videojuegos, los pósters claramente estaban basados en otros videojuegos, los personajes claramente se parecían a otros personajes de otros videojuegos, y todo se parecía demasiado a otros videojuegos como para realmente ser un videojuego propio. Estamos hablando de un juego que nos vendía esto. Nos vendía un multiplataforma, MMORPG de la muerte con mogollón de zombies, mogollón de sitios para investigar, pisos enteros y tal. Los pósters eran claramente copia de otros pósters, como por ejemplo de Last of Us. Las escenas de vídeo... Porque eran escenas de vídeo, no era gameplay, que ellos decían que era gameplay y estaba clarísimo que iba a tener downgrade. Y no solo downgrade, sino mucho más. Al final ha sido así, efectivamente. Igualmente se parecían mucho los edificios a otros. Al final podéis buscar por YouTube y ahora veremos un vídeo, pero está plagado de gente que está hablando del tema y está sacando mogollón de comparativas de dónde han sacado los assets de, no sé si del Unreal, lo que les ha costado el juego, en fin. Se está poniendo la cosa un poco tensa y el vídeo ese no tiene en cuenta nada de lo que os voy a decir ahora porque este vídeo salió hace, pues eso, no sé cuánto, 3 días. Y la noticia es de ayer mismo. Porque ayer, a eso de las 6, 7, mientras estábamos en el stream, salió este tweet de los developers de The Day Before que se llama Fantastic, que básicamente decía Official Statement. Y en él, pues, voy a ir traduciendo un poco al aire, ¿vale? Hoy anunciamos el cierre de Fantastic Studio. Desgraciadamente, Day Before ha fallado financieramente y no tenemos fondos para continuar. Todo lo que hemos recibido de dinero está usado para pagar las deudas con nuestros partners. Hemos invertido todos nuestros esfuerzos, recursos y horas de trabajo para desarrollar The Day Before, que ha sido nuestro primer gran juego. Bueno, eso está un poco por ver. Queríamos sacar nuevos parches para revelar el potencial, full potencial, o sea, el potencial completo del juego. Pero, desgraciadamente, no tenemos los fondos para poder continuar con el trabajo, es decir, al sacar el juego a medias. Es importante avisar que no hemos cogido ningún dinero del público durante el desarrollo de Day Before. O sea, no ha habido pre-orders, no ha habido crowdfunding, no ha habido nada. Pero 40 pavetes que has pagado cada vez que has ingresado a un juego. Pasa que han tenido un refund absurdo. Se ve. Hemos trabajado sin descanso durante 5 años, gastando sangre, bla, lo de siempre en este juego. Por el momento, el futuro de Day Before y Prop Night no se conoce, pero los servers se mantendrán operacionales sin dinero, según parece. No sé cómo. Bueno, supongo que a lo mejor habrán pagado algo antes, no lo sé. Nos disculpamos si no hemos cumplido vuestras expectativas. Hemos hecho todo lo posible dentro de nuestro poder, pero desafortunadamente hemos calculado mal nuestras capacidades. Crear juegos es una empresa increíblemente challenging, increíblemente difícil. Estamos agradecidos para todos los que han apoyado este juego durante estos difíciles años. Ha sido una fantástica viaje por más de 8 años. Y aquí te ponen unos cuantos desde el 2015 que abrieron el estudio hasta el 2023 que han sacado Day Before. Prop Night debe ser otro de los juegos de ellos. Vale. Geoff Knightley, que es el de los Game Awards, dice ayer esto fue también a la 1 de la noche. The Day Before ha sido quitado de Steam, que eso no lo he comprobado aún. 4 días después de su lanzamiento. Fantastic HQ, que es el developer, está cerrando y el publisher Maitona Official ha dicho que va a volver a abrir los refunds de los que lo hayan comprado. El juego está... mira, sí. El juego está valorado en un 2/10 por la peña. Aquí tienes el statement de la empresa, de los desarrolladores, no, de, ¿cómo se llaman? Developer, no, publisher. O sea, los developers son los que crean el juego, los publishers son los que lo envían a todos sitios y tal, los que consiguen dinero, meten dinero normalmente. Para todos los jugadores de Day Before, como inversores de Day Before, nos gustaría dar algunos updates sobre la situación actual del juego. Nos disculpamos por el hecho de que el juego no haya conseguido las expectativas que la mayoría de jugadores quería, y hoy estamos trabajando con Steam para abrir los refunds para cualquier jugador que elija hacer el refund. También estamos en contacto con Fantastic, que son los creadores, para hablar sobre el futuro del juego. Esto quiere decir lo siguiente. Exacto. Y sí, he hecho el cambio de cámara solo para esto. Esto quiere decir muchas cosas. Quiere decir que no han cumplido las expectativas. Quiere decir que básicamente el juego en 4 días ha tenido una cantidad de refunds de la hostia. Quiere decir que lo han quitado de Steam, que ahora era lo que iba a mirar, porque estaban recibiendo tantísimos refunds que han dicho, mejor lo quitamos y vemos qué pasa. Entras en The Day Before. Ah, sigue. The Day Before sigue. Lo que pasa es que a lo mejor no se puede comprar. Hostia, extremadamente negativas, ¿eh? Ah, juego con acceso anticipado, pero ya no se puede comprar. No se puede comprar. Al menos no se puede comprar. Espero que nadie de mis conocidos se lo haya comprado, porque aquí veo algunos que lo querían. Han cerrado la empresa, se han ido todos al carajo y si te he visto no me acuerdo. Y el refund, pues bueno, ¿sabes? Están trabajando los de Maitona, que son el publisher. Los developers, no. Que también digo, Maitona estos. O sea, no sé, sinceramente. Así por estudiar un poco, ¿eh? Ya por meterme un poco en el salseo. A ver qué han hecho esta gente. Cooking Diary, esto suena a juego de sí. Esto suena a juego de móvil, sí. Que es juego de móvil. O sea, a ver, si no son juegos de móvil, esto que me peguen un tiro en la cara, ¿sabes? Pues la verdad es que tampoco apuntaba bien. Yo no me había puesto a mirarlo, pero esta peña tampoco es que parezcan en los adalides de la situación, ¿sabes? Entonces ha habido mucho jaleo, ha habido mucho escándalo, ha habido mucho mamoneo alrededor del juego, y vamos a ver lo que es el juego en sí, para ver si realmente esto es tan malo como la gente dice. Y este chaval hace 3 días que publicó esto, por lo tanto no habla de que hayan cerrado, no habla de ninguna de estas historias, sino del juego en sí, que es lo que a mí me interesaba ver, porque todo olía muy mal antes de que empezase el juego, antes de que saliese, y peor, ha habido problemas con la marca, o sea, me da la sensación de que 4 colegas han juntado y han dicho, esto lo vendemos fácil. Pues nada, vamos a ver qué nos cuenta el amigo.
Day Before is finally here. I played all day yesterday, streaming it for a few hours and then playing for several more off stream myself. And I gotta say, my first impressions are not good. Things immediately began poorly. As I was downloading the game, Liam managed to finish and get in. First thing that happened after making a character, he fell through the floor, infinitely falling through space, forcing him to reboot. I thought, okay, yeah, that's kind of funny, but he's
Sin comentarios.
probably just unlucky. So I clicked on a random Twitch stream because I wanted to watch some gameplay while I was downloading, and the exact same thing was happening. The guy's stream that I was watching made a character and immediately fell through the floor.
Ah, mira, el canecrín.
Or like, I literally couldn't believe it. But, you know, whatever. We'll just give it a shot ourselves, right? So I got in, booted up my stream, and the adventure began. Now, after making a character where you select from a variety of visual and class options, you wake up in Woodbury. Now, fortunately, I didn't end up falling through the floor and was able to progress, being introduced to what is essentially the game's main town or social.
Es que, ¿para qué? Es que de verdad, que tienes una edad ya, tío. En el Wayfinder nos la colaron, pero al menos están trabajando en ello, que es una de las cosas que quería hablar luego. Pero está claro que no, tío. O sea, estaba clarísimo que no. Yo no entiendo cómo narices ha vendido tanto. De verdad. O sea, la gente vivía del sueño de que esto pudiese salir bien. Es que es horrible.
Social hub full of NPCs and other players. The prologue takes you through all the major vendors and stations. There's a doctor, guns, and
ya me dirás si te lo dan. En principio deberían.
ammo, storage, and a workbench. All the stuff was actually fine. Woodbury is a cool looking location and has the standard vendors you'd expect, and it was neat seeing other players running around. After
Que esto lo vi yo, que cuando se cruzaba con... Es una chorrada, pero cuando se cruzaba con la gente que estaba comprando, los atravesaba. Y cuando se cruzaba con otras personas, no, había colisión. Entonces un poco mierda todo.
about 20 minutes, I am then directed to the homestead. This is where they have the game's player housing. Now, having left the confines...
Pero es que escúchame, o sea, es que yo lo entiendo. Porque hay veces que, mira, con el Wayfinder nos pasó, ¿vale? Con el Wayfinder nos pasó. Pero es que el Wayfinder ya no pintaba tan mal. O sea, de hecho, lo contrario, pintaba más bien de lo que ha sido al final. Y esto es que no, tío, es que esto estaba claro que no. O sea, no te estoy echando la bulla a ti, solo que no nos dejemos engañar por estas cosas como comunidad y como viciados, tío. Porque es que no vale la pena, o sea.
of the instant social hub, however,
Basta de vender alfas, tío, como si fueran juego acceso anticipado. Es que esto ya es infumable, tío.
frame rate immediately tanked. Oh, that was really... Why is that so choppy all of a sudden? Ooh, jeez. What is happening? Hey guys, how's the stream, how's it running for you right now? I was getting, I don't know, about like 10 frames per second at this point. Now things did smooth out after about a minute, but this was not a good sign and turned out to be a bit of a performance foreshadowing.
No se ve mal. Del todo.
Proceeded to build my base, selecting from various templates. You're able to place down buildings and other stuff, basically. So to start, I had access to this tent, a camp cot, and a few decorative items. And I thought this was neat, like it seemed fine. Although in all my remaining playtime, I have not once yet revisited this area, as there hasn't seemed to be a reason to do so. But so far, not so bad. Like beyond the frame drops, a few awkward dialogue choices.
All right. Your speech organ seemed fine.
My speech organ and the unlucky people who start out falling through the floor. This introduction, 30 minutes, fine. Not my preferred way to start a game. I like getting into the action and not talking to NPCs for 30 straight minutes, but ultimately nothing aggressively bad had happened at this point. Well, that all changed as soon as I left the social hub and headed out into New Fortune City, or to put another way, once it was time to actually start playing the game, things immediately took a turn for the worse. This has just been a pretty awful experience. All around, I think this game is really, really not good, but let's talk about the reasons why. For starters...
Vale. O sea, hasta aquí, que no paraba de hablar el perro, hasta aquí todo bien. O todo normal. Un Early Access chapucero extra, ¿vale? Que bueno, tenemos el de Wayfinder, tenemos muchos otros a día de hoy aún funcionando. Al menos algunos, como los de Wayfinder, parece que le están metiendo algo de cariño, pero bueno, hasta ahí lo estándar. Hasta aquí no, pero es lo estándar. O sea, negro, es lo estándar. Exacto, no mal, pero feo, correcto. Esa es la diferencia. Exacto, estándar, ¿vale? Ok, todo, bueno, pues vale. De todas formas, ya hay cosas que dices, esto no debería ser así. Pero bueno, estamos acostumbrados. Me confío en el juego. Me mola mucho el rollo de supervivencia zombie y tal. Venga, va. Voy a creer, como Warlight, voy a creer.
The gun feedback is bad, with there being quite heavy delay on shooting effects and hit registration. Many times it'll be hard to tell if you've even hit anything after shooting or how much damage you did. So for that reason,
un ping ahí de la hostia, ¿eh?
And in most cases, you'll just keep shooting, hoping the thing you're aiming at dies. Now,
claro, esto es como si en un juego de lucha me dices que cuando pegas la hostia no sabes si das o no hasta un segundo después. Está claro que esto no es un juego de lucha, pero en principio si es un MMO online deberías tener muy claro que la bala tarda X segundos en llegar, ¿no? Y si ese delay existe así, me expliquen por qué.
Now, a majority of the time, what will happen is you fire a shot and there is at least like a 1 to 2 second delay before you see that shot register or before the animations of your target being hit end up showing. But even worse is that in some circumstances, and this especially seems to be the case in PvP, when you're engaging with another player and dealing with their connection from their PC to the servers and then from the servers back to you and back and forth. When you're fighting another player, this is even more exaggerated.
Básicamente esto es que él tiene un ping asqueroso porque no han pagado nada de los servers.
Many times you'll unload an entire clip into the player and then several seconds will go by. They'll run around a corner or take cover or go into the street, move through a door, whatever. And then after like a good 4 to 5 seconds, they just drop dead on the floor. In fact, this exact thing happened when Liam and I were in Discord chatting. We happened to be on the same server and I ended up killing him. That was a real fight. That's a real gunfight. Is he dead?
I died.
Ah!
Oh, did you kill me?
You?
Yeah, I just died.
Wait, that was you?
Yeah. Did you get my stuff? I'm absolutely loaded, dude.
What's hilarious about this beyond
Bueno, a ver, esto bien. Te encuentras al colega, le pegas 4 tiros, pero esto, hostia, un delay de la hostia, nen. En un MMO, ¿sabes?
on the fact that that happened was you can see I unload into him. He then runs around the truck and ends up falling dead several feet and a few seconds later. Like, it is the registration of these shots happening is super bad. In addition to that, I would say the sound effects in this game are not great, but I'm not even so much talking about the sounds of the gunshots themselves.
A mí me parece importante que se hable del tema de los sonidos. Recuerdo con mucho cariño, por ejemplo, los sonidos del New World, que me parecían como muy propios, con mucha personalidad. Y es importante en un MMO también los efectos. Es que no va a ser todo... Tío, haz las cosas bien.
Like, do they sound like guns, whatever, but it's how the game handles positional and directional audio that appears to be quite poor. The distance and direction of gunshots or really any sounds in the game seem terribly inaccurate. So you'll hear something that sounds like it's just next door, like maybe a few feet away from you, but it ends up being around the block or even streets over.
Pero ni siquiera han localizado el sonido, es decir, no sabes exactamente dónde te vienen las cosas en un open world, que es como súper importante, ¿no? Eso en un, por ejemplo, en un survival, que en un survival normal, que no escuches cuando viene la gente o que los veas a lo lejos, o no sé, me parece igual de importante que por ejemplo, en un shooter, ¿no? Que cuando tú vas agachado haces menos ruido, también vas más lento, bueno.
Gunshots, player sounds like footsteps, zombie gurgles, alarms. Oh, and did I mention the alarms? They are omnipresent, aggressively and hilariously so. I basically need to go back to Woodbury. Oh, sorry, guys. Just have to run by this alarm. One of the 100 alarms triggered right now.
Claro que, a ver, si es un de esto post-apocalíptico, pues es normal que haya alarmas, pero bueno.
Just constantly going off all the time, everywhere. It's super loud, and as far as I could tell, there was no way of shutting them off. I couldn't shoot them. I couldn't interact with the pads to turn them off, as we had seen in preview gameplay footage. Now, I was told by people that you needed to actually pick a character who basically had the perk that let them shut off the alarms. Apparently, I didn't, so I was just constantly listening to alarms blaring everywhere from basically every shop, every door that you could walk into. Besides the larger buildings, all those small stores along the roads appear to have an alarm, and they were just constant.
Es como cuando hablamos del Wayfinder, ¿no? Lo de salirte del juego y tal, o sea, es una constante, o sea, es algo que no hace divertido el juego, que lo hace cansino. Y al final, si tú estás jugando algo, quieres jugar para divertirte, no para estar todo el rato diciendo, bueno, el gameplay está bien, pero es un poco cansado por esto. No, tío.
Only being triggered. It was super annoying. I don't know what else to say. I'm also fairly certain that the game pumps out fake gunshot sounds, very conspiratorial, right? But it's like, oh, they're putting out fake gun sounds to make it sound like there's players playing when there actually isn't. I'm not accusing them of doing that, but I do think they're just putting fake gun sounds in there just for the heck of it, or it seems to be the case if this isn't some sort of a bug. So what happened is I was walking around the city and I kept hearing shots nearby. So I would move towards that sound's location. It looked to be like it was inside of a building, but I couldn't see the entrance. So I would like walk around the entire perimeter of the building looking for an entrance, looking for the source of the sound, but there wasn't any. This was one of those building blocks that had no actual storefront or entrance to it, but I kept hearing the shots and I kept running around the building. There was never a source of those shots other than them just being generated. There's also things like, you know, the zombie AI in this game isn't very good. It doesn't make a lot of sense most of the time.
El ping, chaval.
Sometimes they won't see you when you're right next to them, or you could be sprinting by them and nothing will happen. Other times they'll be hyper aware of you. It's just very inconsistent, really. Animations also of these zombies, they are very few animations. The ones that are there aren't very good. They don't actually sync up with the hits and the movement of the character.
Madre de Dios, si se quejaban del Redfall la gente, ¿eh?
Everything is very glitchy and buggy. Speaking of
O sea, no digo que el Redfall estuvieran bien, solo que me suena muy parecido.
bugs and glitch, dude, lots of them. The ones that we've seen personally so far are things like zombies being stuck in vehicles.
La
or on the
clásica.
terrain. Players getting stuck in terrain. We saw players locked behind fences. The falling through the floor that we mentioned at the beginning. There were many instances of players just not appearing. For example, when in the social hub, you would see just like the data pads, the tablets floating around. There would be a player kneeling, looking at it, but you just didn't see the player. So all you ended up with
Aquí, esto lo estuve viendo yo cuando estaba en directo, lo vi nada, 10 minutos.
was a floating data pad. And in fact, if we want to go back to the gunshot thing, maybe it's the case that the shots were real, but I couldn't see the players because we've seen that there can be invisible players. We've seen all sorts of issues with animations, bugs, and glitches. We know that invisible players are a thing. It's happened in the social hub at least. So maybe the gunshot sound thing being fake isn't the reality, but maybe there's just invisible players running around shooting that we just can't see, but we can hear them. That's a possibility as well. Many, many, many instances of character.
Más de 3 años. El primer tráiler... Pero es que el primer... Es que estaba tan claro que no, tío. Tú... Está tan... O sea... Hay otros que puedes dudar, ¿no? Y al final te la cuelan y ya está, pero... Pero es que este no dudé en ningún momento, tío.
Animations glitching out. One frequent example that
Pensaba... Sí que es cierto que pensaba que no iba a salir tan mal. O sea, como que la empresa cierre 4 días después de su lanzamiento. ¡Ojo! Pensaba que no iba a salir tan mal. Pero yo, no sé, a mí me daba toda la impresión de que no iba a funcionar.
we saw was instead of like seeing a player running as they would be on their screen, we would see them in a kneeling position, just sliding at sprinting speed across the floor, just not moving, as if they were crouched, like looking in their inventory or looking at their data pad. They were in that position permanently, but sprinting at full speed. It's just buggy, glitchy. It's not good. And then yes, those alarms constantly going off. If that is not intentional, maybe we can file that under the bugs and glitches side of things. And
Lo
then,
de las
as
alarmas mal,
alluded to earlier on, the performance has not been good. All around, I would say this game performs very badly. Now, I have a decent PC. I'm not ultimately the top of the line, but I've got an i7.
The day before, sí, 4 days before, ¿sabes? En internet es the scam before. Ahora mismo, ya.
11700K. I've got 64 gigs of RAM. I got a GeForce RTX 3080. For me, the game ran like garbage. Frame rate was all over the place, very inconsistent. The only
Este tipo de cosas de las que está hablando ahora a nivel técnico, de que no le funciona bien y tiene un PC bueno y potente para jugar y streamear y tal, nos parecen tan normales a día de hoy y no debería serlo. Porque cuando tú, por ejemplo, pides en un plato en un restaurante, no te dicen, no, es que la tortilla no la he acabado de hacer, pero bueno, vétela comiendo y ya luego te la acabo de hacer. Cuando tú vas al cine a ver una película, no te dicen, no, es que esta toma no se ve del todo bien, hay píxeles y eso, pero bueno, no te preocupes, porque al final de la película o dentro de unos meses, cuando la puedas volver a ver, pues ya la verás bien. Entonces, ¿por qué pasa con esto, tío?
only thing that was consistent was the stuttering that would happen, in addition to hitching that would regularly occur as you move through the city, presumably because the game is loading in areas, causing these little mini hitches as the loading happens. But the frame rate, the performance was just bad across the board. Now, at first I thought that was because I was streaming, but this persisted outside of the streaming. When I was no longer streaming, when I was no longer recording gameplay, just running natively on my PC, which has those settings. Again, I don't have the absolute beastiest PC, but that's not bad. RTX 3080, 11700K, 64 gigs of RAM. My PC generally runs most games pretty well, even at a 2K resolution. This ran bad. I played around with all the settings. I lowered the visual presets. I tried different DLSS settings, low latency mode. Nothing seemed to cut it. If anything, it appeared like the longer I played, the progressively worse it got. I don't know if this is issues with caching. I don't know if this is
Está mal hecho, ya está, no hay más.
issues with memory leaks, but yes, for me, performance of this game has not been great. Now, I know for some people, it probably is fine because that's just the nature of PC gaming. Performance can be all over the place. But judging by Steam reviews and from a lot of at least the anecdotal accounts that I've heard, it seems like performance being an issue is pretty widespread. Wasn't very often, but whenever there were more than like 2 to 3 zombies, that also seemed to cause some massive FPS drops, which actually kind of leads into my suspicion when they
En un juego que es un apocalipsis zombie, cuando se juntan 3 o más zombies, se lía parda y te bajan los frames a toda pastilla. ¿Qué dices, loco?
They early on, prior to release, announced that this game would focus on PvP and that the zombie side of things wouldn't be a major emphasis. I thought that might be due to the fact that maybe they want fewer zombies to help with general performance of the game. I thought that was a possibility. It seems like that might be the case, or at least, again, in my personal anecdotal experience, whenever there was more than like 2 zombies nearby, performance definitely took a hit. So yeah, performance is bad. There's bugs and glitches all over the place, and just generally, I didn't think the game felt good to play. The shooting, also the movement, I would say, felt really kind of sluggish and lethargic. That's the best way I would describe it. For argument's sake, let's just say they fix all of that. All of these issues get resolved. They improve the gunplay to make it feel better. The hit registration,
Dios.
the animations.
Es que pega después. Sí, lo verías así, sí. Sí, claro, sí. Si eres Flash.
The sounds, they fix the bugs and the glitches, and performance is ironed out so it doesn't run so poorly, and the latency problems, let's say they get addressed in a few days or weeks from now as the launch rush dies down. If we were to snap our fingers and all of those issues were resolved, what we're left with is still a shallow, content and pretty features lacking game. What kind of game is
O sea, básicamente acaba de decir que si todos los problemas técnicos, que es un poco de lo que estábamos hablando antes, si todos los problemas técnicos volasen, es decir, vamos a suponer que van a arreglar el lag, vamos a suponer que van a arreglar cuando las colisiones de las balas con los enemigos, vamos a suponer que si se juntan 3 zombies o más, el juego no va a laguearse, vamos a suponer todas esas cosas de performance que las van a ir puliendo, que también lo entiendo. Cada vez todo es más complejo. Vamos a suponer todo eso, ¿vale? Y vamos a ser buena gente y vamos a creer que lo van a arreglar. A pesar de eso, queda algo sin contenido y vacío.
this, by the way? We've not yet touched on that. Well, originally, and still today even, the day before is described by the developer as a post-apocalyptic open-world MMO survival game. It is not that, and I actually can't believe that they are still calling that. You go on their Steam page, it's labeled as this open-world MMO survival game. This is not an open-world MMO. It's not an MMO at all, and I would barely...
¿Cómo fallan, tío? Los disparos a los zombies a quemarropa incluso, tío.
They call it a survival game. This is an extraction game. You pick what gear you want to have equipped, you then load into the map, go around scavenging for items while navigating the zombies and other players and trying to escape alive. If you die, you drop most of your stuff. Structurally, this is like most other extraction games, but then it's severely lacking in a lot of what you expect. For one, there are barely any zombies. At most...
Tipo, bueno, pues yo qué sé, por ejemplo, el Wayfinder también tendría algunos componentes similares, el First Descendant, el Warframe, ¿no? Payday, consigues las cosas, tal. Bueno, el Payday, pues, sí, bueno, el Payday también, sí, pues va con tiempo. Aquí supongo que no irá con tiempo. Consigues ciertas cosas, tal, pum, acabas la misión y te vuelves.
I would see groups of 2 to 3, but very rarely. I could walk blocks and only see a single zombie in the streets, while also, interestingly enough, not coming across many other players. For a post-apocalyptic zombie survival MMO, as they call it, the zombies are but a footnote here. Just in general as well, there is not a lot going on, not very much to see and do in this game. Loot seems few and far between, and mechanically, besides shooting, looting is all there is to do. Even the quest system is just looting.
Me vuelvo loco, tío. Es que vaya animación de disparo, tío. Madre mía, nen. Es que hay como una línea entre lo que debería ser aceptable y lo que no. Y yo creo que hace mucho tiempo que hemos olvidado esa línea, tío. Es que es un juego de disparos. No debería haber problemas en las animaciones de los disparos, como mínimo.
Every single mission that I have seen so far was just a fetch quest. It would direct you to an area and tell you to loot specific items found within a certain vicinity. There's just not a lot of things. It's also very mechanics and features lacking. You can jump, you can run, you can loot, you can shoot. That's all you need, right? But there's a lot of extra layers of things that should be in here but aren't. There's no mantling, which absolutely blows my mind. This is a UE5 game. I'm pretty sure you can just buy mantling from the Unreal Engine store. I'm being very reductive, but I can't believe there's not mantling in this game. It should definitely be in here, and they better add it. There's also no melee in this game, which is extra perplexing because I swear we have seen melee in preview pre-launch footage. There was...
O sea, si te llega un zombie a quemarropa, solo le puedes pegar 4 tiros. No puedes pegarle una hostia. Muy bien.
Melee, there were melee weapons. There's no melee system in this game. You can't even butt with your...
Es que, encima, es que no han hecho nada. O sea, dice, es que no hay una decisión técnica o teórica sostenible para un juego de zombies sin melee. Explícamelo. Si ya hubiera... O sea, ya sé que parece una chorrada, parece anecdótico, ¿vale? Parece anecdótico. No lo es. ¿Qué decisión técnica, qué decisión de funcionamiento del juego, qué decisión artística hay con un juego en el que no hay melee cuando un zombie te ataca, cuando en teoría es un open world MMORPG? No hay decisión que valga al respecto. Si es una decisión consciente y no un lo dejamos porque no tenemos ganas de hacerlo, que es lo que parece, ¿qué decisión, en base a qué se argumenta esa decisión? En que no es buena idea que se peguen con... Pues tío, un bate de béisbol, loco. Si es que es clásico de las historias de zombies. ¿No queréis hacer un juego clásico de eso?
Weapon. There are no melee weapons from what we've seen. There is no environmental engagement beyond looting, occasionally opening doors, although you need keypads for any doors that can be opened. And I guess there are elevators that you can call and start as well, but very little engagement with the environments. Things like, I don't know, being able to climb ladders, for example, that's not in the game. Again, no mantling system in the game. Engaging with the world, not a lot to it, which is part of what leads to it feeling very, very static. There are no events in the game as far as we can tell. Things like horde modes or loot drops happening, things that you might expect from an extraction game. None of that is present here. There doesn't appear to be any bosses or bigger zombie enemies for better loot, again, from what I've seen. Maybe this just requires more playtime. There's also currently no progression in the game, although that was alluded to even in the character creation screen. It mentioned something about progression. You picked classes with different skills, but no progression seems to be in here. And also, no.
Escúchame, Necro, no, tío, no. O sea, quiero decir, a ellos les gusta un buen bate de béisbol lleno de pinchos, les gusta como al que más en una serie de apocalipsis zombie o en una película, tío.
VoIP, which as difficult and frustrating as it can be listening to other players in these games, it definitely does add to a lot of the charm. But ultimately, my main point is a lot of things that you might expect from an open world zombie survival game, but although that's not what this is, it's an extraction game. A lot of things that you would expect from extraction games, a lot of things that you would expect from modern day third-person shooters, this game just doesn't seem to have. Even early on, from just my first impressions in an afternoon of playing, there does seem to be some pretty clear design and structural problems with this game.
Porque es que la diversión en pegar con un bate de béisbol a un zombie, tío, eso es divertido. Ahora te digo, es que no tiene ni pies ni cabeza nada, tío. Nada. O sea, si es un MMO open world, ¿dónde están las skills? Aunque sea skills mundanas, quiero decir, no hace falta que sea algo súper fantasioso y cosas así, ¿no, tío? Yo qué sé, química, por ejemplo. Y haces que juntando materiales raros que otra gente no puede usar, pues pueden hacer cócteles molotov o armas así. O yo qué sé, pickpocket, ¿no? El tema de abrir cerraduras. O arreglar vehículos para poder coger vehículos y salir corriendo. O sea, ¿dónde está todo eso? Claro, porque si haces todo eso tienes que crear un sistema para eso, que esa es la movida chunga de estos juegos. Y no quisieron o no les dio la gana o iban solo a por los 40 pavos que iba a costar el juego a la salida.
Issues. There's definitely going to be lots of ways to game the system. From what we could tell, disconnect and teleport safely with all of your items back to Woodbury. So instead of having to go to the extraction zone, at one point I was playing, I got disconnected from the server. I had my backpack full of stuff that I looted, and I just ended up in the safe zone in Woodbury with all the stuff that I looted.
Mira, al menos ellos tenían todas las cosas que lootearon, no como en el Wayfinder que te ibas sin nada. Armeros, ladrones, francotiradores, melee, corredores.
Seems like that is going to get abused. But then there's also the fact that there's only 2 major extraction points. There are a bunch of small extraction points, but you can't take the stuff in your backpack, only the stuff in your pockets, which is a very small space of inventory. You know what this is going to lead to? Without a doubt, people will end up camping these locations to hell. I assume even today, but if not in the next week or 2 weeks, people will realize if you just camp the only 2 extraction points that people can actually take their stuff.
Tenía esperanzas de que durase 2 semanas el amigo. Hostia.
Through, that's going to be the best way to get loot. Don't bother going around spending 30, 40, 60 minutes looting the town. Sit at the extraction point, and when everyone who has their loot comes there, kill them and take their stuff. Because they've designed the game with only 2 static extraction points, that's going to be an issue without a question. And just in general, there is very little to explore. A majority of the buildings in the city cannot be entered, even in the rural areas that just have like a smattering of houses. Most of them also can't be entered. There's very little in the sense of use of elevation. Like we saw a couple of buildings that had like a 2nd level, but that was basically it. Just in general, very flat, very static. And ultimately, I just felt like playing this game was just pretty boring. And not because I don't like the genre. I've I've loved a lot of zombie survival games. I really also like extraction games. It just feels almost like the thought that I had while playing this game was like, they took the Dark Zone idea from The Division and The Division 2, right? They took that concept and they just then removed 90% of the content and features, and that's what we were left with.
Patético. Patético, tío. Patético. Recordemos, y os vuelvo a decir, que esto es 3 días antes de que se anunciara que cerraban. O sea, este señor no sabía que cerraban.
Now, there are good things about this, right? I don't want to be predominantly negative. I will say it looks...
Esto me gusta de este chaval. Dice, a ver, todo esto que he dicho es pura bazofia, pero vamos a ver e intentar ver el lado positivo. Venga, máquinas.
Really good. How much of that is due to Unreal Engine 5 and the pre-bought assets that they picked up from the store? Who knows, but who really cares? I think it looks good. I think there's some pretty cool environments and locations, some really neat areas in this map that you can go around and explore that are visually appealing, even if they are not gameplay-wise engaging. I also think the premise is fine. Like I said, zombie survival games I like extraction games as well. I think you can make a good one of these games. I just don't know that this is it. And yeah, I would say that the map system is cool as well. That's another thing that I think is pretty neat. You basically pull out this digital pad that acts as a GPS map. It shows you all the roads and the major points of interest. You can also see a little bit on the peripheral of your vision things that are going on in the world. So
no me parece mal esta forma de mirar los mapas y de controlarlo y tal. Bien, o sea, quiero decir, si todo lo demás acompaña, pues tiene sentido que esté guapo.
Doesn't completely blind you while you're looking at the map to what's happening in your vicinity. I think that's pretty neat. I think that map system is cool. I think it looks good. I think the premise is fine. But at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. Currently, the game sits at overwhelmingly negative on Steam with an impressively low 16% approval rating from users, which is one of the lowest that I've seen in a while. I was going around just watching some streamers. I wanted to get other players' thoughts on the game, see what they were given for feedback, see how their play experience was going.
Y la cosa no ha ido bien, ya te voy haciendo el spoiler de que lo que la gente ha dicho del juego no ha sido bueno. O sea, las Mongol directamente en directo, que este chaval también es muy borderline, pero bueno, en este caso estoy de acuerdo con él, en directo explicó a sus 50.000, 60.000 viewers cómo tenían que pedir el refund del juego. Estuvo, pero eso tampoco me parece bien. Perdona, en este juego me parece bien. Si lo hubiesen hecho en el Wayfinder también me parecería bien, a pesar de que yo no lo hice. Sí, o sea, han mentido. Han mentido, punto.
I saw a variety of things. I heard one person, though, at a point say that everyone that was giving the game a low score on Steam, you know, leading to its overwhelmingly negative reviews right now, this person said that they were just sheep, that they were just playing into the herd mentality, basically, and hating on...
Odio los White Knights de los juegos cuando salen mal. Cállate, el juego ha salido mal y a ti te gusta. Cierra la boca. No lo defiendas. Sí, pinta bastante bien, pero cierra la boca, no digas nada, no lo defiendas, cállate. Di, bueno, la idea está bien, a ver si lo arreglan. Ya está. Es que tampoco hace falta defender a muerte algo que ni siquiera te va ni te viene a ti. ¿Qué te va y te viene, tío?
On the game for the sake of it. Maybe. Or maybe this is simply a bad product and people are reacting to that. It is not as advertised. People expected an open world MMO. It is still described as such on their Steam page right at this moment, but what they got instead was an extraction shooter. Even as an extraction shooter, if you like it, which I myself do, it is lacking many expected features. No melee, no mantling, barely any environmental engagement, no events, basically no zombies, rarely coming across other players, all while being full of bugs and glitches, and I'm sure I've only documented a fraction of them, while also having massive latency problems that make the combat and movement feel like crap. And beyond all of those things, at the end of the day, I just found the game plain boring. The world is static, there's not much going on, few zombies, fewer players, you're just running around a basically empty city, looting cars and entering the occasional building. I would say that the only real redeeming quality that I can see in this is the fact that it's new, and you can PvP. So if you want to walk around in a new game that you have not seen and experienced before while fighting other players, great, that can be fun.
Sí, pero te peleas contra otros jugadores. O sea, quiero decir, ¿qué dices, tío? O sea, ¿para qué? ¿Para qué vas a hacerlo en este juego? O sea, puedes hacerlo en 100 juegos mejores.
And this game has that, but that's about all it has. At the end of the day...
Es que métete en un server PvP del WoW, del Final 14 seguro que hay, de cualquier juego que tenga PvP, tío. ¿Para qué quieres meterte en este? Es que no es... O sea, ha buscado algo que yo que sé, antes habría dicho, por ejemplo, el sistema de mapeo. antes que esto.
I just want good games. That's all I really care about. We've talked at length about this developer's history, about the development of this game, about everything that's happened with the volunteers, with the store-bought assets, with the legal issues, with the constant delays, with the fact that this developer has abandoned every single one of their game that they put into early access so far. That is the reality. None of that really matters if they make a good game. We talked
Es que todo apuntaba tan mal, todo apuntaba tan mal.
about that stuff, and we followed this stuff because I was interested in this game as a premise. Like I've said, what they showed initially looked really promising. Upon looking further into it, I saw some things that looked a little concerning. All of that preamble, all of that discourse around the game prior to it coming out doesn't matter if the game is good. Even with all of that in mind and with all of that knowledge, I was hoping this game would be good. And if this game were good, I would happily say so. I would prefer...
Claro, es que ¿quién no prefiere que un juego salga bien es que, en fin.
The world and the reality be that this video is me saying, guys, despite all of the concerns the day before came out, it's a killer new game. Sure, it's not a zombie survival MMO, but it's an extraction game, and they did a really good job, and it plays really well, and it feels great, and I had super fun playing, and I'm going to keep playing today. But that is not it. That is not what they've done. As of now, on first impressions, no, I don't recommend buying or playing the day before. In fact, I've sent in a refund request on Steam. I've blown past my 2-hour limit that is typical before they cut off refunds, but I'm going to fight for it anyways because I don't want to give them money. Like, I consider this a sacrifice, and hopefully this video, as well as the stream that I did, provides as a warning to keep you away from it for now. Maybe they turn it around. Other people have other impressions. I've actually seen other streamers and content creators.
Nope, nadie ha pensado de una forma diferente a lo que está diciendo este chaval.
Speak quite highly. I feel like that is just because it's fun to go around a new game and fight other players. I think that is like the only virtue this game has, the only redeeming quality. Outside of that, if that's all you're looking for, walking around a new space that you haven't played in before and shooting players while everyone is still new and bad, yeah, absolutely, you can have fun with that.
Pero métete en un mapa del Fortnite para eso, tío, déjate. O sea, haz tú un mapa del Fortnite y métete con tus colegas, tío. ¿Qué me estás contando?
But everything else about this game is shallow, is lacking, is just outright abysmal. And the development, the history of this developer leaves me lacking any confidence that they are going to turn this around. But I hope they do. Because like I said, at the end of the day, all I want is a good game.
No.
Turn this into a good game, and I'll play it. But right now, the day before, it's bad. It's just outright bad, in my opinion. And that's going to do it for today. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I gotta say, I take no pleasure in this. I wish this video were the opposite. It were me saying, wow, with all the issues, they ended up turning out something good. But that is not what has happened, unfortunately enough. That'll do it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.
Nada que añadir. Este chaval ya lo ha dicho muy bien. Tenemos un juego que pintaba mal, tenemos un developer que hace las cosas mal y el juego acaba saliendo mal y pintando mal. Bueno, pues estándar. Por desgracia la industria ahora mismo está así, no se puede hacer mucho para evitarlo, simplemente ir con cuidado. Pero lo que deberíamos intentar todos, a ver si así se les pasa el hacer las cosas tan mal, lo que deberíamos intentar todos es que cuando vayan a hacer un juego nuevo, no comprarlo como becerros el primer día. Y yo me incluyo. Un Zelda, un From Software, estos los puedes comprar el primer día. Un FIFA, si te gusta ese juego. Porque sí, pueden tener fallos, pero no van a ser fallos garrafales, no te van a estar vendiendo la moto. El resto, al día 5. Y a los streamers, a los youtubers que la empresa les ha dado el juego, pues ahí lo ves y tú ya tomas tu decisión. Pero deberíamos dejar de comprar previas. Deberíamos dejar de comprar el juego el día 1. Porque si no dejamos de comprar juegos el día 1, habrá muchos day before. Muchos Wayfinders. Deberíamos dejar de comprar juegos el día 1 o el día 0, a no ser que estés 100% seguro o hayas jugado a la beta y hayas visto que está bien y la beta sea antes de ayer. Si tenemos este tipo de cosas, tantos ejemplos de juegos que no han sido lo que nos vendían, ¿no deberíamos empezar a pensar en si vale la pena seguir haciendo... O sea, no haciendo videojuegos así, sino no esperando, tío. Espérate. Si estás viendo esto en YouTube, cuando sea que lo suba... Pues muy agradecido, like, dislike. Bueno, dislike no. Si no te ha gustado, no vuelvas, pero no pongas dislike, va, porfa. Pon like y comenta o suscríbete si te apetece. Y no compres juegos el día 1.